Put your hands together for Tony motherfucking Hinchcliffe, the Golden Pony.
This is Bertcast.
I don't know. I'll start it off by saying I got into comedy because I loved laughing. I didn't get in. I didn't ever like. Do you remember Dimitri Martin got into comedy? We were talking about it, and he was like, I like the math of it. Like he liked to figure it out, and I was like, that's my least. I hated homework growing up.
Right.
Like I don't like sitting down and putting pen to paper. I mean, I do it, but I do it when I'm inspired. And I understand there's a theory that you're like, no, you should be working when inspiration shows up, but. I think I'm also a guy that writes on stage a lot, so...
Right. It's an interesting thing, because, I mean, if you don't get a rush as a kid, like, if there's not, like, an animal inside of you that frickin' loved it, that got, like, a weird, like, serotonin rush from hearing other people laugh, that type of joy that you can bring to people, the opposite of crying or whatever it is, it's like a weird noise we make. If you look at what it really is, what laughing is, and how weird we are for making people want to do that... So much, it's so weird. And how do we make them do it more and more often and louder and all that? To just do it for the math. I don't get that part. But
I'm putting words in his mouth. I mean, not.
You really just misquoted a human there.
Yeah. No, I'm saying like there are guys, and he's one of them, but he enjoys, like one of his favorite things to do is do palindromes. You know what palindrome is?
I think I do. Remind me?
Mom. Basically, it's when it reads backwards and forwards. Yeah. But Dimitri has he has the world record for the world's longest palindrome. I think it's like something like 72 pages.
Wow.
Like he's a genius. By the way, once again, I'm sure I'm putting words in his mouth. He does have the world's record, but I don't know how long it is.
I wonder how many giant pieces of paper it took him to write down that huge palindrome. How many of those tearaway giant human-sized notebooks he had to go through?
Yeah, but I like and so that's why I end up watching specials, because I go, I don't know, I like laughing. Mm-hmm. Like Stanhope's last special was so enjoyable.
Yeah,
it was enjoyable, for so many different reasons. And in a weird way, I think if you're not watching comedy, you can almost be left behind. That's the myth of the road.
Yeah. I don't watch people's specials almost ever, even my friends.
What was the last special you watched? I watched your special.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I feel bad. I don't like. Every day that goes on, I get more and more embarrassed of it. How many? Do you have two?
Two, yeah. But
don't you do sort of like looking at your first one? Do you ever look at it like
Yeah. But I'm glad 100%.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it. I mean, without a doubt.
I'm definitely glad I did it, because if I didn't, I'd still be doing that material.
Exactly.
See, that's the one cool thing is cleansing your act of this shit material. Dude, I'm such a better comic because of podcasting.
Yeah.
Because of podcasting, I write cleaner. I write smarter. Uh-huh. I write more from my heart. But also I listen to a lot of podcasts. That's my biggest flaw probably is I listen to too many podcasts. And there are some I have to like scrap.
Which one makes you laugh the hardest? Christina and Tom? There's something about them, they make me cackle. You know how some people make you have a different laugh than other? Yeah. I know you do. I've seen you do it. We've been concerned for your health on Kill Tony a couple times.
If we're being serious, my favorite podcast to do is probably Kill Tony, because I love that format.
Yeah.
I love that format. I love that cheat code of us getting up and not having to try to be funny, but funny gets to be happening.
Right.
I was explaining that to a British comic the other day we talked about this the other day.
Yeah.
Where did we talk about this?
Yeah, you mentioned that you were in
meeting.
England.
Yeah. And, but my favorite the one that's making me laugh the hardest recently, but I have to qualify this by saying I won't listen to Rogan if Callan's on.
Right.
Or if Segura's on. I won't usually those are the ones I don't listen to, only because sometimes comics slide in bits they're working on, and that is you can't draw your information from a place like that where then like I know that I didn't come up with this premise, but I have a bit about being like a dolphin. I'm certain someone said this.
What do you mean being like a dolphin?
Dolphins don't have any responsibilities. Like no one ever asked a dolphin to grow the fuck up. They're just a dolphin. when a dolphin jumps out of the water and does a flip, everyone loses their fucking mind. There's no dolphins in the water going like, fucking seriously, man? Like, dude, why don't you just help us get fish? And you're like, fuck it, man, this is what I do. I'm a dolphin. Here, put that in between us. It'll be easier.
Yeah.
But, like, and by the way, that's a premise I started on a long time ago about dolphins. But the first joke, the iteration was when I lived in New York, I wanted to run in front of buses like a dolphin and just jump up. That was all I had to it. And then I'd order a beer like a dolphin. There's a very simple comedy.
Yeah.
I'd go to the bar and go, 1 beer, and then I'd back up and go, ee! It was very simple comedy. And I had this.
It's the kind that I just fucking love, though.
It was very simple. And then of course I read a book by really great writer. I forget his name, but he's the guy that everyone reads. Not Jack Kerouac, but the guy that has remember the book that looks like it's got a hummingbird on it, but it looks like a pack of Camel cigarettes?
I don't really read.
Anyway, and then I know for a fact on an airplane, I was like, oh, I could figure out this dolphin bit. And I'm like, hold on. And, I drink and I black out and I wake up on airplanes.
Yeah.
So, like, halfway through, I'm like, did I just hear that? Did I hear someone say that? Why am I thinking of this dolphin bit right now? And so I've been really careful to not do it on stage.
I mean, you gotta let it rip. Everybody. In fact, Joe Rogan and I had this talk last night for a second. It's like every single thing has been covered, whether it's out there on someone's special or out there on the internet. It's official. Like it's been done. Every idea for a segment of a show, it's been done in some capacity or another. I literally
pitched a segment to a show one time that I didn't even realize I had seen on British television.
Yeah,
and I went. And I just was sitting in a room, and I went, this would be a good idea. And then we got to do it, and halfway through doing it, someone was like, it's just like that British show. And I was like, oh, fuck, that's where I saw it. Oh,
exactly.
My God.
I mean, it's just, like, so crazy.
You were going to say you pitched a bit for a show?
I literally was like, my manager calls me yesterday. We're having just a normal, like, talk, scheduling things, getting airplane tickets for whatever. And I go, man, you got me at a weird time. I just got stoned to the gullets. And he's like, you're always stoned to the gullets. I'm like, yeah, but that's how I write and get that 10% that you get. That's for me getting stoned to the gullets. And I go, check out this idea that I just so happen to write down. And I'm being sort of silly, but I'm also sort of excited about this idea. It says O-bitch-uary. And I'm like, it's an obituary. So whatever, like, bad person or terrible person died, we pay tribute to them in this segment of the show we call an obituary, where we just give them like a fuck you roast eulogy, like a real just send off. And he's like, oh yeah, John Oliver did that on his podcast. I'm like, John Oliver has a podcast and that's a segment on his. These guys have everything already.
John Oliver has a podcast?
This guy's winning Emmys.
I love that you go, John Oliver's got a podcast?
Yeah, what is he? These guys just, they take everything.
What the fuck's John Oliver doing with a goddamn podcast?
He's got Emmy Awards.
There's this guy that John Oliver's best friends with called Daniel Kitson. I want to see him. Apparently he's like the Mitch Hedberg, like the cool, alt, crazy Australian, doesn't do press. Every show sells out, kind of guy. Everyone was talking about him. They brought him. Everyone brought him up to me in England.
Huh?
And I was like, fuck, I gotta hear more about this guy. Yeah, I did a bit, but I'm really honest. Like I have a hard time with people. I have a hard time with thieves. Mm-hmm. It's been happened to me a few times.
Yeah. Me too.
And I learned you just don't say it out loud.
Yeah.
You just talk behind their back. Fuck them. I can't. It's almost like rape culture in a weird way. If you call someone as a thief, it's in a weird way you become the bitch.
Right.
And then you're like, really? And then people go to defend them. Just like, oh, you were drunk. You dressed like that for a reason.
Yeah.
And people are like, really? Are you sure it's not parallel thinking? Because, and you're like, no, I fucking, trust me. I know that person. I told the joke in front of them. They heard me say it.
That's when it's a thing. And I think that's a thing that a lot of internet people don't really get, is that we see each other. The reason why I don't watch specials at all is because I'm probably at the Comedy Store pound for pound more than anyone. I live 3 blocks away from it. I worked there forever. I live it. You know what I mean? I can go there, get tired, and then go home and still have an hour and a half, 2 hours of needless energy to burn playing a video game or thinking about the next day or reading lines or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And so I get to see what I want to see, and I get to see the craziest fucking shit. If I'm hearing rips, last night I walked in, and when I got there at 11:15, 11:30 on a random night, Louis just popped in the OR, and Rogan's slaying the main room. You just hear roars. It sounds like 400 people getting butt raped in the main room. As I walk like towards that back door, you can just hear it from outside the building.
Yeah.
Which with laughter, it's not like rock and roll. You know what I mean? I don't think people get that. Like, it's like, yeah, you can hear the band when you pull up to a Staples Center or like, the Coliseum or something. But to hear laughter outside of the club, nasty shit going on. The hell's my point? Oh, and it's not like I go up and I watch Louis or I watch Joe because, I normally organically, sort of naturally have seen them recently working with Joe all the time.
You've been working with Joe, like 4 years?
Yeah, and he's already working on his third special since starting working with me because he's done 2.
Yeah.
So
his last special, Triggered, is him and Stanhope, and I put Segura off to the side. I love Segura's act, but I never throw him in the mix. I just don't because he's like, we're so close.
Right.
It's very difficult for me to. I mean, I think he's. That's like what the problem I have with him and Push. I think their podcast hilarious, but I know them, and half the time they're making inside jokes that I feel like I'm a part of.
Right.
Other than the Jeans Mommy's Hitler jokes.
Yeah.
So like, but him and Stanhope,
dude,
are the 2 best specials. And there's Bill Burr's is amazing. I haven't seen Jim Jeffries, but I've watched a lot, and they're just
on this last one, on Triggered, Rogan hits the gas from the start. He peels out and literally doesn't step off.
I watched it the day, dude. I watched specials the day they're released.
He's not pacing it out. He's not waiting for them people to catch up. He's not giving a fuck. Like, I was watching it like this with my eyes just wide open, just like, holy shit, because I had watched him work it all out.
Did you do that special? Did you open for him that weekend?
I was going to. I had my own thing, like my own headlining weekend that I just couldn't get out of. It was something good or something like that, or I was going to. Ian Edwards ended up doing it, but I was going to do it with Ian. But I had, toured all around with him while he was working all that out. And to get to watch him execute it like that, and I only watched the first 35 minutes because I'm literally like, okay, I mean, I'm obviously, there gets to be a point watching Joe and other greats, Chappelle, who I am lucky enough to open for when he's in LA sometimes. Watching these guys, I love it and it inspires me, but only to a limit. Then there's a part where it's like, oh, fuck, I'm literally like, there's nothing I can do unless I fast forward 17 years of work to get, when I see, especially Chappelle, you know what I mean? When he hits those fucking just beats, it's...
Look, there's a lot to be said about Chappelle. I watched both of his hours. Personally, I like the LA one better than the other one, but that's because I saw it first. I saw that one before the Austin one. So in my head, I was like, you better be better than LA, which is, it's like saying to a chef, this pizza's great, but you better make better pizza.
Right.
So, it's like pepperoni and cheese. I love both of them.
Yeah.
But there are nuances of what he does that as a comic, you could pick apart anyone's act. Anyone's. And I can tell you what's lazy in anyone's act.
Absolutely.
And what's inspired.
Yeah.
And all I'll say is that, and maybe it's because I haven't seen him in so long, there were more inspired moments out of this hour than, and I've talked about this probably ad nauseum, but there were more inspired moments of him just very casually getting a laugh without trying.
Right.
When I went, wow, man, and it's just choice of words. It's the same thing I was saying about who were we talking about before this? About Stanhope.
Yeah.
Like Stanhope, he does this bit about ISIS, and it's just so perfectly written.
Yeah.
That then he goes, and then he's like, ISIS, I'm not doing his bit justice at all, but ISIS is recruiting young men without relationships that are lost in America to join ISIS. And I'm like, hey, that's my fan base. And the line is great, though. Yo, ISIS, I'm working this corner. Such a great fucking line. So then I look at it and I go, what really, and this has no connection, but what it said to me was, I have these long stories, these fucking 12-minute stories that I tell on stage. And they're funny, they're great, they're outrageous, they're crazy. But I never looked at it backwards. And I looked at that joke backwards and went, wow, he got me to, yo, ISIS, I'm working this corner.
Right.
And I went, it's a great way to look at a joke, work it backwards. And then I thought, what are my stories that have great endings? And I looked at this joke about, my buddy Dan is listening to this right now going, I want to hear the fucking joke. He's a guy from Travel Channel. But a joke about jumping off the stratosphere where the ending is fucking amazing. But I never could, I never really cared to write it because I didn't like the middle part. And I went, no, fuck the middle part. Write the middle part. The ending is what you got. Like, I'm not saying I know how Stan wrote the joke, but right. I bet he watched it, and was like, fuck, those are my,
It's amazing how things get written. You never know, front to back or back to front, and sometimes it starts as just a rinky-dink one-liner and turns into an entire story.
The Machine had 3 beats in it that I liked.
Yeah.
That's it. 3 beats that I liked, and I was like, ooh, if I can get from one beat to the next, then I'm done.
Yeah.
And so, but I got so lazy with my story writing that I would think that I believed that an outrageous premise was all I needed.
Yeah.
I almost ran out of air. I remember telling, The Moth is?
That rings a bell.
They do a storytelling show. They're really popular. They're great storyteller producers as well. Mm-hmm. And I said, I took a conference call to do a story. They'd posted a story that made me bawl my fucking eyes out. and I was like, and I was telling her this. She goes, what story would you like to work on? And I go, I ran out of oxygen at 90 feet in Fiji. And she was like, okay, I think I know the end of that story. I was like, what? She's like, I don't know why you tell it. Like, clearly you live? And I was like, yeah. She's like, so what's the stakes in the story? And I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah. I was like, I never looked at it that way. Without any insight from outsiders or from the industry, I started saying to myself, you told a phenomenal fucking story probably a month ago about, and I'm not going to give away your bit because I don't know if you've recorded it or not, but about your neighbor, your black neighbor.
Yeah.
Are you working on that?
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so fucking good. And I went, and by the way, in watching that, I went, every story doesn't have to be a tentpole.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be very casual. Just walking down the street. Yeah. And I was like, that's cool. And then I said, start looking in your life at it doesn't need to be big. I don't have anything in that realm.
Right.
But I was really impressed by that story. And I think that's the inspiration I look for when I watch comedy is to go, yeah, that's it. It was such a great fucking story.
I'm so excited about that bit. I've been closing with it, closing hour 15, hour and a half long sets on the road with it. I know it. How I've been working at it hard.
Yeah.
I don't really do stories, and that's
what took me off guard. And I went, that's a great fucking story.
In May is going to be 10 years of me doing stand-up comedy continuously, and it's truly the first story that I've ever had and really worked on.
It's a great story.
And I was so excited. I'm so excited about it, and we just submitted it.
Louis Gomez.
Do
you know Louis Gomez?
Yeah.
You know Louis?
Yeah.
He's calling right now.
Oh, that's him?
In the back.
Can you hear a bunch of dishes drop?
No, you were saying
equipment.
10 years.
And we just submitted it to This Is Not Happening because I'm like, this is the one. I'm going to pop right off the screen.
I would save it for your next hour.
And they turned it down.
What?
They said they don't want it. So, I was going to save it to close my next hour regardless because I feel like, hopefully it's on Netflix again, and I feel like there's really only minimal crossover between the two. I know how crazy that sounds, but I feel like there's not that much overlap between Comedy Central and Netflix anyway. So I was going to do it for both, but they said that it's too stand-up-y of a story. It's too funny of a story, not compelling enough. That was their note. So
that's a good problem to have because that I have that problem with This Is Not Happening. First of all, I don't think anyone that works on this show doesn't know how much I love that show.
Yeah.
It really is meant for what I do.
Yeah, it's great.
Entirely.
Yeah.
And I told, not like an idiot, but real excited that I could do it again. I got this flying dildo story ready for it.
Yeah.
And it's a really, immediately my agents and managers were like, why did you use that on this? You should use it for your hour. That's a fucking great story. And I was like, oh yeah. And then I'm like, and then I burned the material. And by the way, it wasn't like fleshed out.
So you did do it. You did do it on This Is Not Happening.
On This Is Not Happening. And then my agents were like, why don't you, can you do that for your hour? And I was like, I've already done it. In my head, by the way, once I do a story, it's done. And then,
oh wow,
and that's how but once I do it on like media, like if I do it on it, and then I did they've been calling it out because This Is Not Happening is a really fucking popular show, and everyone's calling out flying dildos. They first heard on Rogan, then I worked it out, and now and then the other night I was like, I don't fucking tell that story. And they're like, please. And I was like, fuck it, I'll tell it. And I told it the right way for the first time. And I went, motherfucker.
Right.
I was like, fuck. I rushed it to get it on This Is Not Happening. I remember I had like a tag that I needed Ari to ask me about.
Yeah.
And I was like, just ask me. He was like, whatever happened to this? I go, just come on stage and just ask me and I'll tell you what happened. And I fucking worked it out perfectly. And I went, shit. Yeah. And I was so bummed. But you know what? The new way is a mashup. Maybe I can put it on a special.
Totally. Totally. I mean, you have to realize, like, it's hard to find those things now on, not bashing Comedy Central, but on their websites and the platform.
Well, you can't find it on Comedy Central. Thank God Ari got YouTube to put them up.
Right.
No one's finding shit on Comedy Central. It's such a confusing website.
Yeah.
I love you guys very much, but man, you got to fucking fix your website.
Seriously.
And that's the problem with networks is they don't want to really drive you to the internet. They want you to watch TV. That's how they make their money.
It's backfiring. If they had pushed the internet first, they would be the YouTube. They would have been the everything. It's an interesting approach that they took. Meanwhile, those companies are all like so far in the green. Look at Netflix. Their stock's at an all-time high. A high? They've been going this way since forever.
Do you ever Google Trends things? Do you know what Google Trends is?
Sorta. Ooh, tell me.
And you don't.
Ooh.
It's fucking fascinating.
Ooh, I got the wild bird eyes on.
Dude, this is one of my favorite things. And by the way, I'm also in therapy because of it. Because
oh, no.
I have a problem. I have a distinct problem with validation, with making people happy. Validation ultimately is validation. So when my serotonin dips, usually from partying, and I got my first 2 re-entry days, which are, if anyone's wondering, it's a Xanax the first day at 4 p.m. and then a Sonata the next night at 7 p.m. And that's how I re-entry.
What's a Sonata?
Ooh, only the best sleeping pill ever invented. It stays in your system for 2 hours. That's it. 2 hours. So for 2 hours, you feel real sleepy and you fall asleep. And then it's out of your system. So when you sleep for another 5, you wake up feeling amazing, completely refreshed. Now, I have a problem. I have a fear of addiction.
Yeah.
So I have a regiment. Like a party on the weekend when I'm on the road. I'll have a few drinks on the plane Thursday, drink Friday, drink Saturday, fly home Sunday, drink on the plane, and then Monday, Xanax at 4 p.m. This sounds so unhealthy. Xanax at 4 p.m. because all that partying just gets into your system and you just got to shake it.
Yeah.
And I want to be there for my family. So I'll take a quarter of a milligram of Xanax, which is nothing if anyone knows anything about Xanax, at like 4 p.m. And I'll just chill, have a great dinner with my family. We make a Blue Apron together. Blue Apron's brought my family together so fucking much. You have no fucking idea. Dude, I swear to God, I will have read a sponsor for this at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I have to say, candidly, have you ever made a Blue Apron?
No.
Do you cook it all?
A little bit.
Dude.
They deliver the food to you, right?
Deliver your food in a cooler. It lasts for like 5 days in the fridge. I'm sure I already said this in the thing. I'll make this very short. But they're really cool meals. And for me, with 2 kids, the whole family gets in the kitchen and cooks. And then we have a dinner together. And it's one of the cooler things it's one of the cooler sponsors I've ever been involved with. But more importantly, like for my 2 days home, I'm covered. I got 2 meals that are like brand new shit that my kids are like.
It's not just a meal; it's an experience.
Bam,
Blue Apron.
But you heard. I apologize but I do really love the product. But and then the next night I'm good all day. But I am prone to anxiety, so I'll start laying in bed, tossing and turning, going, shit, are all the doors locked? Is the gates locked?
Right.
So a Sonata helps me just go to sleep, and then Wednesday I'm fine. So yeah, like this whole week I've been I've had unassisted sleeps, we call them, in my house.
I sort of do the same thing drinking-wise, and instead of the Xanax and Sonata, I just balance out the proper amounts of coffee and weed. Yeah. If I need to be awakened, I have...
Are you still drinking at all?
Yeah.
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 You were one of my favorite things. I was in Columbus recently. I remember you lived in Columbus, and you went through a period where you were having like fine whiskey, fine wines, and big steak dinners.
Totally.
And I did that the other night by myself, and I thought I should call Tony and tell him I'm having that moment.
I love that.
Yeah.
Feels great, doesn't it? It's priceless.
Dude, I wish I could enjoy a bottle of wine right now, but I'm so calorie conscious that I'm a little OCD about it.
Yeah.
But man, I had such a great fucking dinner. I think it was Smith & Walensky's.
Yeah.
Is that the one in the...
Yeah, it's great. It feels good to treat yourself sometimes. We did one of those Vegas runs, me, Rogan, and Ian, a couple weeks ago, and I noticed when I was checking in, the lady said, "There's already it comes with your room, $100 voucher to the spa." Right? And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. I look up the spa prices when I'm in the hotel room. It's like $500 for anything, right? And I don't really need
you're in Vegas. For a second, I was like, where are you guys staying in Columbus?
Yeah, no, we're in Vegas and at a really nice hotel. So I go to the spa, even though everything's out of control, just to see if they have a steam room. I ask if they have a steam room. They go, well, we have this one steam room. It's all right. Or we have this other steam room if it's $70, you have access for the whole day. I go, well, will my $100 voucher work for this $70 special steam room? And they're like, absolutely. I'm like, all right, great, let's do it. And it was a fucking steam room, a humidity room, a sauna, a ice fountain thing that you stand under with dripping ice.
Love those.
It's just a bucket in a stainless steel like spaghetti strainer. You just go there and you stand under it and just fucking shock your body.
Love those.
And there was this one thing where you lay down, like it's like a shallow pool, but it's just grates, and you're laying down and it's all windows, and you're just butt naked in your own little cell. With just all of Vegas right there, butt naked, just looking at your wiener floating. It's amazing.
And then Ian comes in with his massive hog. Hey, Tony. You mind if I put my dick in there with you?
Yo, my dick needs those that massage table. I was just getting my dick a massage.
So, just out of curiosity, to go back a titch. Do you see your stand-up moving in a different direction than where it's been?
Totally. I mean,
at 10 years, I think at 10 years is when I did my first special. I want to say 10 years when I did my first special, and I look at where I've come from there to now, and that right then I was doing a couple stories with a lot of jokes in between because I was afraid of losing them.
Right.
And it's interesting I would love to have talked to me 10 years ago, but where do you see...
I mean, it's crazy. The difference I'm really lucky to have had a special come out last January on Netflix because,
One shot.
Right. One shot. And I made it 7.5 years in. I made it myself. We sold it to Netflix, blah, 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 blah. And
the rumor was you made it for like $780.
I cannot talk about that. I have like a 20-year not allowed to talk about this Netflix thing that happened. It's going to be, when I get to talk about it, you will not believe it.
Really?
No one will believe it, but I can't talk about it now.
Fuck.
But
then I'll just speculate.
But let's just say we made fucking magic happen. And if you watch it, it's clearly not a huge production. Like the Steadicam operator was sweating bullets. He had failures all around him. Like his screens went out. He's sweating. He has all this stuff. This guy that literally was the bulk of the budget. One human being, 1 hour of work, and he's
in the
struggling.
middle. In the middle, he goes to the bathroom.
Yeah, you can literally see it's wobbly. There's audience members getting up during it, which throws off the focus of the Steadicam. But other than as far as the comedy.
No, can you talk about this? Was it your idea, or was it your Steadicam guy's idea?
Oh, it was my idea. I saw this thing in my dreams.
Okay.
And, in a dream world, I think hopefully this next one, or maybe later on, I can go back and revisit this shooting style with a much better budget and extreme beauty.
It's a Swedish style.
Swedish?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know they... See, everything's been done. John Oliver was in Sweden doing that already.
It was very popular. Harmony Korine did a movie based on it. It's a style of Swedish filmmaking where it's just one shot.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it's not as interesting. Not sadly enough, but interestingly enough, your special is much better than the genre that's out there. The genre doesn't keep your attention very long. It does. By the way, so right now I'm sure someone's like, "It's Dutch, asshole." But it's there was a very popular filmmaker that kind of coined it, where I thought it was kind of lazy for this filmmaker to do it. Then Harmony Korine got into it. I got interested, and I tried doing a couple ones like that as shorts with my buddy when I had a GL1, and could never do it because I want to be the filmmaker, but I really want to be in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Like, that's my ultimate goal.
Yeah. But to go back to the comedy thing, like, I was lucky to make it and have it, but all it's done is totally, it's like a barometer for, I'm almost embarrassed of it, to be honest.
That's fucking ridiculous.
Like,
I'm embarrassed of my special, but I've also been doing it 18 years. And so I have a right to be embarrassed at fucking... By the way, right up until I did my last special, which was like a year ago almost, I was still proud as shit of that one.
Yeah.
And then I saw my next special and I went, oh.
Well, I know what my next one's going to be. So that's sort of what I'm sitting on. If you had asked me a year ago how I felt about my special, it was different.
Yeah.
But now I'm out there every weekend, these long sets. It's all different.
Well, up until when you did that special, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you were doing many headlining weekends by yourself. You're doing a lot of the Death Squad tours.
Yep.
And touring with Rogan.
Yep.
And now you've kind of gotten away from that. I think you did the DC Improv.
No, I've done a bunch. I do the road every weekend though. I just did Providence and Austin, Houston, Seattle, Portland, everywhere. I go everywhere.
You learn a great deal about yourself when you are the last person. And no one... Attell told me this one time. Mm-hmm. He was like, enjoy these years. Enjoy them, man. Write as much as you can, because it's a very different monster when they paid to see you and it's your show. And I was like, oh, give me that day. Oh, yeah. And when the day happened, and by the way, this is another perspective shift for you to take a look at, but I don't think that day really started happening for me until January of this year.
Wow, I love that.
January of this year was the first time where people were like when I first did Rogan and I told the machine, changed my career globally.
Yeah.
Nationally.
Definitely globally. I've met those people in Australia and Sweden. And they're animals.
And people were calling out the machine, but for the most part, it was still papering rooms. And then in January, things changed entirely, and I went, oh fuck! Now I feel the pressure. And by the way, I was writing new material, and I was like, fuck. I remember I want to say I talked to Tom obsessive about it. Yeah. So I was like, dude, because Tom had been there already for like a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah,
he had already been at that place where he's like, yeah, things shifted for me.
Totally.
And by the way, I'll show you on the Google Spikes the day it happened. Google Trends.
Oh, I'm gonna hate this thing.
Google Trends.
This is gonna ruin me.
No, because you can't. Because you compare yourself. You can compare yourself to other comics.
Oh shit.
Oh, dude, this.
So it probably, man.
Watch, I'll show you. It's so much fucking fun.
But to go back to the thing you were just talking about headlining, another thing people don't realize is when you're the new guy in town with like podcast heat, according to the club managers or owners or bookers, I don't know if they do this to you, but they will always throw their absolute ace fastball throwing feature right before me, right?
I love that you're telling me this.
Because
yes,
you know what I'm talking about. And they have all those local jokes. You have no idea what they're even talking about.
And dudes, let me tell you something.
This reminds me of the Washington Interstate at 2:30, and you're standing in the green room like, I got this fucking crowd, and you hear references like that, and you hear a roar from the audience, and it's literally like what I'd imagine a UFC fighter going through in their locker room when you hear the crowd like, oh, in another fight, and you're like, whoa, shit's real. And that guy's going for your head. If you think the local feature doesn't want everybody telling him, man, That guy was good, but you, to be honest, you were my favorite. Because we've gotten that, I'm sure, right? As features. You know, it's not always the smartest audience member. They don't realize that maybe, and they don't realize that not maybe, but definitely the feature's doing 20 to 25 minutes of gas. Yeah. All their gas that they've ever created. So however long their career is, that's their 25 of the crunched up heat, continuous. Yeah. No need for fat. Whereas the person doing an hour 15, hour and a half, has to take you on a ride, let you breathe, do this and that. It's a whole thing. But the challenge is that's when I get like literally amped up, dude. I get silly right before when I'm headlining on the road. Like I don't show it at the Comedy Store, you know, cool as a cucumber. Maybe you'll see me walk across the back of the room once or twice, like, you know, just walking it off. But I literally get like fucking like I'm about to go into an octagon or something like that.
You know, there's comics that it's the opposite for. There are comics that are cool and cute, like could give two fucks on the road. Then they go to the Comedy Store and they're like, oh, fuck, I better bring my A game.
Right.
I'll tell you, I was one of those guys. My first set at the Comedy Store, which is like there's a couple things in my life where I go, hey, man, you'll never catch me talking shit about you. You just did me a solid when you didn't know that it mattered to me. Yeah. Judd Apatow's one. I'll never talk shit about that guy because he brought me up at the Comedy Store. My first time ever doing a set there. Tosh bumped me, Judd Apatow bumped me, and I was like, and this is my first set ever.
Wow.
And Judd Apatow says, who's next? To the off to the side, and he goes, Bert. And he goes, okay. This next guy, you saw him on, he had a show on Travel Channel called Trip Flip. He had another show called Bert the Conqueror. Put your hands for Bert Kreischer. And I went, he pronounced my name right. Holy shit. He knew two of my credits. And I went, dude, it's my first time performing here. You could have very easily not. You probably don't know who I am.
Right.
But the fact that you took a second to go, the guy I bring up next, how do I pronounce his name?
Yeah.
What is it? What are his credits? Didn't come to me. He did that. I went, dude, you're a comic forever. You're obviously a great producer in film, but you're a comic in my heart, and you will always be a friend. I will never talk shit about you. I won't let people talk shit about you. Like that. And the person I saw right after that was you, and you say congratulations, and you bought me a drink. And I went, dude, you don't. And every fucking door guy came by and were like, hey man, congratulations, man.
Yeah.
I'm 44.
Yeah.
I make a fucking dickload of money.
Yeah.
I don't technically need that in my life.
Right.
And I was nervous as fuck. I was scared. I've been doing comedy for 18 years.
And that's why you do need it in your life. That's why you're putting yourself through those challenges.
Adam
to make
came and sat next to me, and he goes, hey, man, I am so sorry about it. I go, don't worry about it. I understand the fucking breakdown. I get it. And Adam sat next to me. Every door guy said congratulations, and you came out and bought me a drink. You're like, congratulations on your first set. And I was like, in my head, I was like, dude, this is like, no one knows that this is as big a deal to me as Letterman was.
Yeah.
I mean, and those moments, they register forever. But the thing I'll say is, like, there's road guys, a lot of them, massively talented comics that are terrified at the Comedy Store.
Oh, no doubt.
Terrified.
Well, I started there. My first spot ever was in the original room. I went there to start. I was built in the dark like Bane. So I think that's why, like, I'm so comfortable there. And by the way, that I take that with me on the road. Even though I'm cool as a cucumber there, my pride says when I'm on the road, I'm repping the Comedy Store. If I started at the Comedy Store, it has to be crazy the entire time. I have to blow their minds in the first 30 seconds for me to be, super comfortable. Like, with something clearly improvised that I couldn't really plan and just sort of take myself to the zone. And that totally, that's interesting because that's the flip. And also the way that you look at the Comedy Store is bigger than Letterman and everything, that's exactly how I looked at it when I started there. And I think putting a place on a pedestal and making it that big of a deal, because it is, helps you. It pushes you to the limits.
My therapist said to me, that first, right when I got passed, I was on the road and I couldn't call my avails the first week. And I talked about it in therapy. I said, I feel really guilty. I only have one night home and I feel like I spend with my family. And he said, you've talked about this with me, that getting passed is a big deal. And you said, one of the things that I wanted the whole time I was on the road doing Travel Channel and doing the road, I was like, I want to work at the Comedy Store. It was one of my goals in my career. I want to work at the Comedy Store. And my therapist said, if you want to work at the Comedy Store, then you have to work at the Comedy Store. You have to show up every day and work at the Comedy Store. And he's like, so you must work at the Comedy Store. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, fuck, if I got the one night off, I gotta go. If I want that to be my thing. And I did. My first, I don't know how long, but like my first chunk of time, every night I had off, I was like, and I only had like Monday, Tuesday off. I come in Tuesday night, do 3 sets. Come in Tuesday night, do 3 sets. Come in, right, and it wasn't until the End of the World podcast when I was like, I felt really comfortable and was like, okay, I don't feel like I belong here. I never feel like I belong anywhere. That's part of my problem. But I feel comfortable here. I don't feel like I need to ask anyone, how do I get a drink? Or where's the bathroom? Or can I go back,
I never feel like I belong anywhere either. You know where it really hits me is when I'm at the UFCs with Rogan. No matter where we are, if it's Buffalo or Sacramento, especially Vegas, especially MSG, but it's so bizarre being that close to the Octagon. One time Leonardo DiCaprio was sitting directly behind me, so I have to do an entire 180 turn to look at Leo DiCaprio, who's wearing a ball cap and sunglasses, trying to lay low next to Tobey Maguire and one of the guys from Entourage.
He doesn't realize he looks like a blood diamond runner in Africa, because that was his outfit for that. I'm like, hello, bro. Now, do you feel like, because I feel like this for you, I felt like this for me. I remember me and Tom Segura had shared this conversation. We were the youngest guys headlining Funny Bones for a period of time, and I felt like there was a target on us.
Yeah,
like that when we went on the road, there were guys aimed at taking us down.
No doubt.
And do you feel like that?
No doubt, without a doubt. And they're also, I'm just guessing here because I would be if I was them. They think that we aren't real. You know what I mean? They think like, oh, I do this in my hometown just like they do. They just so happen to be friends with Joe Rogan and bleepity blop, and they got lucky with that. If I lived in LA, I'd probably have that. They start to rationalize, and I get it. That's what we're all sort of doing that. We're all sort of trying to hype ourselves up as much as we can and think that we're special. And they're out for blood, man. They want to be number one. And if they get just one of those shows, just one, then they won. That's the way I look at it. Like, you can't give them any slack I'm always super nice to them and everything. You know what I mean? Like, way over the top nice, but I know they're out for blood. It's like House of Cards shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where it's like, I know that when I walk out of that room, they're going, this is about me.
It's been 10 years since I felt that. Probably more than 10 years. Probably maybe 12 years since I felt that. And now it's so funny. I have made so many friends by having those weekends where you have a guy who doesn't know who you are, and maybe you go to the condo and get high with him, and he says some off-color shit to you, like, whose dick do I got to suck to headline? Right. And you're like, hold on, I didn't suck anyone's dick, man. I'm just doing the work. And then you break down, and then one day they'll say to you like, hey man, like, what? Can you talk to Aaron for me, or what am I doing wrong? Like, why am I not a headliner yet? I'm the same age as you, and I'm not headliner. What am I doing wrong? And you go, and you have an honest conversation and then they become friends, and you're like, and then now that is the norm for me, and so much so that I don't really bring a feature with me, because I do believe that there is good in everyone, and I believe that those guys that were trying to be dicks when you were younger, that are maybe still younger, or your same age or whatever, that do the local shit that sometimes can be hacky. I believe in local comedy. I believe in telling whoever Stroop or Mark Grossman in Philly. I go, put me with your favorite guy. Put him with me. It's a sold out weekend. They'll have great shows. They're gonna murder, and I can sit back and watch their act and go like say things to them. Like, I put one guy aside, and it was Attell said it to me. I was like, hey man, work on some writing. Like, you got a bit up and running. It kills. You know that. Yeah. Like, what doesn't kill? throw a couple of those in the middle and try to figure it out. That's the point of the art form. The art form isn't to go up and murder and see if you can get your dick sucked. Exactly. That is the antithesis of it.
Yeah.
The art form is go up and throw in your sloppy shit in the middle.
Yeah.
Close strong, open strong, but figure out some stuff. Take some chances.
Growth
and by
everything.
chances, I don't mean do something that you saw me do on the Late Show that you think you could probably do too, like bring a chick up on stage. I'm saying take chances with material.
Right. If say it's an hour set, if you get only a new 5 seconds, if it's 5 seconds in which you crack up, in which it's like, fuck, it's in there. I literally say it with my weird style of stand-up. I'll literally say to an audience, I'll riff something into a joke, and I'll say it 100% of the time I do it. Now, it's literally become part of my style where I'll go, wow, that part wasn't part of that joke, and I just wrote that shit in front of you. Born here in Boston, where you know what I mean? And they fucking double down. They get it because I open up like a book after, you know what I mean? Like, somewhere between 3 and 10 minutes in which after I initiate contact, I'll share anything. Somebody gets up, I call it out. Somebody farts or whatever. The air conditioner goes on, whatever's going on. You know what I mean?
Sometimes those crazy shows, like I was in San Antonio, I think it was San Antonio, and I said, and it was chaos. It was fucking chaos.
Yeah.
Mark Zupan from Murderball's there, who's in a wheelchair, and he rolls on stage.
What?
Oh, does a shot. It was that night ended, by the way, with Mark Zupan falling out of his wheelchair.
How do you fall out of a wheelchair?
You're so drunk that you fall out of your wheelchair. And then the next day we were supposed to do a podcast, and I was like, I'm so fucked up from hanging out with you that I cannot talk. But I said to someone, it was chaos.
I thought you were going to say, I'm so fucked up I'm hanging out with you. I can't walk.
Do you have another wheelchair? I want to go to lunch with you. Do you have another wheelchair? But I said to the audience halfway through, I went, and it was chaos, and I went, by the way, this is the art form. Like, just so you know, this is the art form I fell in love with. The fucking chaos that you got to put together and still try to elbow in a bit.
Oh yeah,
and elbow in us, and
and it's hard once you create something that's insanity. And I'll literally say that I'll go, I have no idea how I'm going to follow this with my written material. This shit is ridiculous. When crowd work goes insane, and the guy, blah 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 blah, it can be so perfect sometimes, and it can happen 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, and you're like, fuck,
dude.
I cannot let off the gas for a second now. That's the only way to do it. Is like you just can't slow down. Then
you gotta like
that opportunity you were gonna give them to give them a show and let it breathe is now over, or else it's gonna be hard work after that.
It's so funny. I feel like I'm not saying I've been doing it so long, but I feel like when I do see brilliance happen in the room in the moment, I get scared of it and I go, we could definitely start digging this hole, but if we do dig this hole and we find gold, then all we're doing is digging the hole for the rest of the show. Yep. It's really, it really is a fascinating fucking.
It is. And that's what's great about our art form is I think once more people do figure out more about it and the psychology of the rooms and how each room's different. One guy came up to me last night. He's like, "Hey man, nice to meet you. Blah, 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 blah. I just saw all three of your shows in Chicago." I go, "You saw 3 of my shows?" He goes, "Yeah, that weekend you did at Zany's was unbelievable. I was just going to come the Thursday night. I ended up coming Thursday, Friday, Saturday." I'm like, "Wow, nice to meet you."
Yeah.
I literally, without any hesitation, go, "What's a note that you noticed after watching me 3 shows that you wouldn't have noticed after the first show?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, one thing I noticed about your shows, it seemed like the crowd was sort of on a delay. They were laughing at what you were saying, but it was almost like they were laughing after you were saying it when you were setting up for the next thing." And I go, that's an interesting note. First of all, thank you. And I explained to him, because I knew what it was immediately when he started saying it. I started telling him about the room, Zany's in downtown, to where it's literally
small, right? It's like
small,
90 seats.
Well, no, it's like 160, but it goes straight back deep. Tight walls left and right, which I love because I don't move around much at all. I'm very stoic, and when I do move, it's still just like within my little parameter.
Which, by the way, dog ear that. Keep going.
And I'm explaining to him, like, well, the stage there is super high. So psychologically, people are naturally thinking that I'm talking down to them and all this stuff. And I just start spelling out from all this little shit that only really surgeons know about.
Yeah.
But since I knew from him going to 3 shows that he might find it interesting, and he gave me an interesting thing that he thought I really didn't notice, you know, all of a sudden we're talking about it. And it reminds, you know, I always use these UFC analogies, and I'm going to do another one. Like, someone who's never seen the UFC before is like, wow, well, that punching part's cool, right? But I don't get it when they get down on the ground. That part seems boring. Whereas if you talk to anybody who really knows the art form and gets more into it, you realize the punching part's fucking awesome. Sure, punches are great. We all love it. You can't beat punches unless it's the slow chess movements of jiu-jitsu, and where a guy decides to put his arm is winning or losing.
Where you're watching a guy lock his legs on a guy's one leg so he can't get side control.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, what the fuck? What?
Yeah.
What's he doing? And you're like, watch.
Yeah.
Oh, there he got his. Yeah.
And when you see it, you see it. But if you're looking at it as a blob, but when you notice the little things, it gets more and more interesting.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a big part of the UFC's upward success, and because it's a beautiful art form. It truly is. And once you realize that those boring parts aren't boring, and what I'm saying is the entire art form of stand-up to me is like that, in which I feel like sort of like unlike being a magician, to where once something's exposed, you're like, oh, I get it now. Now I'll know how all those tricks work. I feel like it's not like that with stand-up. With all the different styles and evolutions of a comedian, I feel like the more people know about these things and how rooms are different and how, the first show compared to the second show. Had I gone to the second show, we probably would have gotten to hang out more with the comedian afterwards, or, you know what I mean? Because they had to rush us out to see the second show.
So a lot of my fans are like, hey, man, I didn't get to have a drink with you. And I was like, well, you went to the first show. I did a fucking hour meet and greet.
Yeah.
And then I went back and I literally walked right on stage.
Yeah.
I feel like, what?
You do your meet and greets while the show's already started.
I have to. It's an hour meet and greet.
I didn't realize we could really do that. That's an interesting thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've always sort of had to, like, just either super dip out and, like, just wave to people real quick, but I didn't.
Yeah, but you can do that. I don't have that luxury.
Right.
Like, I have such an approachability.
Yeah.
Like, the people that listen to this podcast know me very intimately.
Right, exactly.
And so when they come out to a show, or they've seen me on Rogan, I'm so open and honest, sometimes to an uncomfortable place, that when they come up to me, they want to have, everyone wants to, which is fine. Everyone wants to have a minute and tell me their story, and then, or why they like the podcast, or what they like about the podcast, or what they liked about, like, or they're losing weight, and what are, what's Tom like, or,
Have you been to Australia yet?
Yeah, not to do stand up, just to do a
you
TV
gotta
show.
do stand up there, dude.
I just got an offer. I just got an offer to do it in November. Nah, spoiler alert.
Do it November, summer there.
I have a feeling. That they gave me the offer, and they're like, "We noticed you had 2 weeks free in November," and I was like, "Yeah, we have Thanksgiving. It was one of those weeks. I can't go for that." But my wife's the one that is very anti-international touring.
Ooh,
it's my lifestyle.
Ah,
she knows that that when I go abroad, it gets fucking insane.
Yeah.
Because my clock's off, and I really am inspired. As silly as this sounds, I'm inspired by travel.
Yeah.
Like, it really makes my juices flow. And so, like, we did London, and the show sold out very quickly. And I was like, I started going, add another show, add shows.
Yeah.
Like, add as many shows as we can. And my wife's like, no. She's like, no, because I won't have you for a whole day. Because the whole day I'm thinking about the show. I'm like, I'm abroad. I'm trying to notice things. Like, the one joke I wrote in England was they're very proud of their torture. Like, there's so many places where you can tour where they're like, this is our torture show. We used to put his balls in a vice. And I was like, we tortured in America, but we can't really bring it up. We're like, oh, I don't know who you're talking about. We never broke half their foot so they couldn't run away. And so, but that's where my head is. That whole day is writing jokes for that show. My wife's like, nah, you're here with your family. You could do your podcast, do as many podcasts as you want, dip out on any tour you want. But when it comes to shows at night, we don't have you for that day, and we don't have you for half of the next day because you're recovering. Right. But yeah, those meet and greets, for me, I'll do a full meet and greet. The lines are thankfully very long right now, and usually I'll get done the meet and greet, and go right on stage because the feature and host have already wrapped their show.
That's great. I didn't really realize that's a thing.
Well,
that
if
exists.
you
that's going to help a lot of people from the first show. Sometimes I just don't go out, and I need to do that because I don't go out because I realize that if I go out, I feel like I'll be blocking something. But if I tell them that,
dude, there's so many people that want to meet you and just like they hear you on Rogan or they hear you on this or they hear you on Kill Tony, and they're like. And they're like, hey, man, I got a question.
Yeah.
Like, somebody, like, can I tell you the coolest thing about this fucking podcast? I've talked about Isla's dyslexia, and guys that listen, obviously, if you listen to the podcast, you're probably a big reader, but you probably aren't. Like, I'm not a big reader, that's why I listen to podcasts. And a lot of them have dyslexia, and they've all emailed me on my fan site.
Just a bunch of misspelled emails coming at you.
Dear Treb. And so... And so Leanne's gotten a bunch of really great books to read about dyslexia to help Isla, and like one of them is changing Isla's life. And I was like, and it's just some guy came up to me after a show and he's like, I know Isla's dyslexic, I'm dyslexic, I've got a great book, it really helps me. Guys are like, have you read Henry Winkler's books? He writes in a dyslexic font, and then I tell it to Leanne. Dude, it's a dialogue. It's a dialogue that is extremely valuable to me. You know, it'll, and like there'll be people coming up going, hey man, why didn't you ask Tony about this? Mm-hmm. Why didn't you ask Tony about that? And you'll go, oh cool, I'll have him on next time. Like I did a podcast with Henry Phillips, and a bunch of people hit me up and they're like, dude, you missed a lot of points. So then I did one with Chris Fairbanks yesterday that'll go out after this one. This one's next week. Chris Fairbanks will be the week after, and then Henry Phillips and Chris Fairbanks and I are going to do a 3-way podcast and drink. That's what I told you. My double podcasts. We got to do one night with like some nice whiskey, me, you, and like Red Band or Ari or I'd love to get Rogan on the podcast, but he's just so busy, and I really feel bad asking him because I asked him one time and he was like, yeah, we could do that, or you could just come on mine, and I was like, definitely, I'd much rather go on yours than you be on mine because 20 million people hear it as opposed to 1 million,
and everybody that listens to yours will definitely listen to that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so now I'm always hesitant to ask. I would not even hesitant. I just don't ask because I was like, I don't want it to look like I'm lobbying to get on his because he's such a cool guy. He'd be like, just come on mine. Yeah. And I'm like, if he wants, we talk. If he wants to do a podcast, he'll ask. You know what I mean? And by the way, I don't say that. I'm not fishing. I'm just saying like that's the way. Like same with you. I don't ever ask to go on Kill Tony, but if you want me on, you'll text me. Right. Can you do Kill Tony? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, of course.
It's so funny you mentioned not wanting to ask him to do that because I literally am doing my podcast with him tonight. Oh. I asked him, and he's showing up to the Comedy Store an hour early to do
the Pony Hour.
Yeah. The Pony Hour, my new podcast where I just talk to people like this. It's fun.
I like this. I wouldn't get. Like, I'll bump into you at the store and we'll have a drink or talk quickly about some...
Everybody's floating around there.
But it's really nice, you know, like one of my favorite people in the world, and we're with him, is Greg Fitzsimmons. Yeah. Fitzsimmons, man, I've respected that guy for 18 fucking years. And it wasn't until I got a podcast about it that I became friends with him. And by the way, his podcast is the best version of... what I'm doing is like a mashup of like Marin Rogan. Like Rogan's just fucking whatever he finds interesting, that's on the podcast. Yeah. I'm the same way, but there are people that I find interesting that my fans are like, I'm sorry, Bert. Yeah. I get that you're interested in that, but that is not interesting to me at all. Like Black Sails. I'm obsessed with Black Sails. I had the creator of Black Sails on my podcast, and they're like, and 30,000 people were like, that was cool.
Huh, what's Black Sails?
It's a TV show that I love. It's all about pirates. So fucking good. It's ending this season, so you missed the ship. No pun. But yeah, Black Sails is awesome, and but then if I put like Ari and Renazizi on here, it's probably my biggest, and I could talk to them for 4 hours. Yeah, I think I might have talked to them for like 3.5 hours because we got drunk and Ari couldn't finish a sentence. But then that's when everyone shows up and they're like, that's what we're talking about. More of comics, more of drinking, more of just my buddy Dan today said, you know what I like about your podcast? He goes, it's a really like ADD conversation that bounces all around the place. Yeah. And he's like, and makes you not want to turn it off because you're like, wait, I know you guys brought up Google Trends. When are you going to finish that conversation? Right now. So this is Google Trends. So what's beautiful about Google Trends is you can find out. I'll do it this way so you can see. Oh, fuck. I just fucked it up.
Man, this is exciting. I can't believe I'm going to find out a new thing that I'm going to have to check like everything else.
So you can find out where people are, when people are finding you on the internet and how many people are finding you.
Wow.
So that's it. Now here's the really tricky part.
You can just look up anybody's?
Yeah.
Just type something into a search bar and that pops up?
Yeah. Now, so what's better is you can compare.
Oh,
so now you can compare.
Put my name in there.
No, I'm not going to do you because that would be
Hurt
uncomfortable.
my feelings.
I'll do Tom Segura.
Yeah.
By the way, he's my barometer for success because I know what he's making on the road, and so I judge my Google Trends on my income. So
I love that.
When it spiked like that, I was like, that big spike, I was like, oh shit, because I know what Tom was making in clubs, and I was like, oh, I'm going to make that this year. And then I did, but Tom's will blow you away. Tom, actually, this isn't a good one, because Tom, like, see that double spike right there? Where we see that spike where that big one for me and then for him? You know what that is?
That's Bert is fat.
Yep.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, I mean, you guys really shot out of the stratosphere.
And then watch, let's see, Ari will be on the same one. Ari doesn't come up for some reason, I think.
Man, that's crazy.
Ari Shafir.
Trends.
It's really fucking fat. Doug Benson introduced it to me. So then...
Man.
Oh, fuck.
I'm into Instagram stories now.
No, Ari's not coming up. But here, I'll show you. I'll show you, and then I'll show you Rogan against you.
Okay.
Rogan's a really fun one to type into Google Trends. Rogan and Bill Burr, because they're... And by the way, the king is Daniel Tosh.
Wow.
Tony.
Yeah, he's got a lot of viewers over there.
Hinchcliffe.
Yep.
LKCLIFFE.
Hinchcliffe.
Tony Hinchcliffe.
Oh, it's not even showing up.
No, I might have spelled it wrong.
Oh my God, I'm not even a blip on the map. This is when
Tony Hinchcliffe right there, right?
Yep.
I spelled it right?
Yep.
I did? Hinc. Okay. Here
I'm not popping up.
No, you're popping up. Here's your Google Trends.
Oh no. I'm so scared. This is that time on a live podcast when Bert realized that I'm not famous enough to even be trending.
You fucking froze my phone up.
It really is.
Holy
I was
shit.
making a joke, but this is really... I don't think you could do anything worse to hurt somebody's feelings.
It just came up. It was actually really good. But the best is when you... Okay, here's you.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. That's good.
It's really good. Oh, hold on.
Incoming call.
Hey, Rachel, are you there?
Hi, Bert.
Hey, that's okay. I'm doing a podcast right now. Can I call you back? I have a few ingredients I want you to look up and see if we can acquire.
Sure.
Okay, I'll call you back. Bye. Now, you ready for this? This is going to be very humbling, but it's humbling to all of us. You ready?
Yeah.
Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, comedian. Okay, you ready?
Nothing I love more than being humbled.
That blue one.
Oh, dear God. Oh, no.
That is fucking insane, right?
Oh, no.
Dude, all of us, none of us register on his fucking radar.
Oh, my God.
It's crazy.
I want to know what happened in October 2015. That's an interesting one.
It was probably not October. It might be...
I wonder if that's the pro wrestling clip.
That is February. February of 2016.
2016. That's
when did your
my special came out.
Yeah,
January 15th.
You can figure it out pretty easily.
Okay.
I did this with Owen Benjamin, and he was like, "Whoa, what's that spike?" And so what you can do is you can go Tony Hinchcliffe, February 2016, and then it'll say, "Check out your new Netflix." And you're like, "Oh, that's what it was." And Owen Benjamin, he had a massive spike that blew everyone out of the water.
Wow.
And it's when he got engaged to Christina Ricci. And he was like, "Oh, I can't let that be my spike." And so then me and Owen will text each other back and forth and go, "I'm spiking right now."
Wow.
But yeah, it's really fucking fascinating. Here, if you want, I'll put you up against like this is a really good barometer, and this will tell you the business plan of people. Like Joey Diaz has just been committed to his podcast. I remember him telling me, dog, fuck everything else, my podcast. And Joey's a good one. When you type in Joey, he's a little humbling as well. He's just on a rise. Well, same with Duncan.
He's the funniest human being in the world too.
Like, look at Joey.
Jeez,
like you register, but fuck.
I got to get my life together.
I could do this. I go on when I'm serotonin drops on Mondays. Yeah. I do 3 things. I have 4 things. I check my Twitter, I check my Instagram, I check my Facebook, I check my Google Trends. And I find that when I am in a weird funk of like no serotonin, I end up doing it almost obsessively in like probably 7 times that circle, 7 times within the day. Of like sit down and I'll check YouTube and I'll be like watch some videos and then I'll be like, and then I'll because you can check like in the past hour, you can check like in the past hour how much of people have Googled you for your whole life, like since 2004, since Google Trends started.
Don't you sometimes though, when your serotonin drops and you do that to help yourself, like doesn't it brings you down though?
Horrifically.
Yeah.
That's what my focus is on, is not using my phone,
right?
Not getting online for stuff that I care about.
Yeah.
Like today I got online, the only 2 things I've done online today, other than this right now, might have posted a tweet or a Facebook something, might have posted something.
Yeah.
And that can't be great for the podcast. And I searched flights. And I watched Rogan with the guy he's got on today. Only because I had heard him and Jim talking about this guy.
Yeah.
And then I saw that guy's name pop up. I forget his name.
No tax something.
What?
No taxation or something like that. I saw.
No.
Today?
Yeah, today he's doing one right now with.
I'm going by his Twitter handle. I don't know his actual name. No taxation or something like that. It stood out to me because I'm like, wow, is this guy doesn't want taxes?
Colin Moriarty.
Oh. I don't know who that is.
Colin Moriarty. He is a guy who put out a tweet on the National Day Without a Woman and said something to the effect, I'm misquoting it, so don't take it literal, but National Day Without a Woman, it's never been so quiet or comfortable around here. And he had to resign from his job at a gaming place.
What?
Because everyone said it was racist. I did not quote him properly on his tweet. His tweet was a lot funnier than what I just said.
Man.
But and Joe and Jim were talking about it, and it just came up on my phone in the car with my daughter, and I heard them losing their fucking mind about this guy who called that tweet racist, which it wasn't. And so he's on the podcast, and I started listening to that, and I'll probably finish listening to that today.
That's crazy.
But those conversations, those are the ones on Joe's that I can't get enough of. And I'll listen, like, when Norton's on, I'll listen to it, because Norton doesn't, I'm not saying that those other guys run material, but, like, Norton's not, there's no bit coming out of Norton. They're just having a very educated conversation. Yeah. There's a lot of comics I listen to, and I'll listen to The Fight Companion with Callan and Schwab, and Eddie, only because I think Eddie's fucking fascinating.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing that you mentioned the running bits on Rogan, because I've gotten bits off of talking on Rogan.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like it's one of the like what comes first, the chicken or the egg type of things for me on that show, because like I'll get a bit out of that because immediately you realize sort of, right, if Joe's laughing at something hard, then there's a speck of something there.
Yeah, I did that early on. I would be like, if I found a story, I still to this day, if I tell him a story, or we get into a story, or he asks a question, he's intrigued, I'll try to figure it out on stage. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, radio is so different than podcasting, and I don't think you ever got to do radio traditionally the way I used to,
right?
Where you do 5 stations in the morning.
I dabbled in it, but I know what you're talking about.
And you could run bits on radio and find bits and figure them out on radio that could go on stage. The first time I did Rogan, I did a bit. This is 2000. This is a long time ago. I did a bit. and he is like, I mean, you don't know unless you know Joe, but he just went like this, like not genuinely not laughing, but asking like,
Right.
really? Like, just genuinely intrigued. And I went, oh, fuck, don't ever. I literally was like, I remember I was sitting next to Brian on the couch. This is back when they did it on the couch.
Yeah.
And I was like, in my head, I was like, this is not radio.
Right.
Because I'd come in like I was doing radio.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not radio. This is a conversation. I was like, oh, fuck, we're going to have a 3-hour conversation. And I was like, oh, you better be involved, Bert. Like, stop with the fucking... One time I fought a bear.
Right.
You know? And that's why I say I think podcasting changed the dialogue of comedies, because I then stopped doing my comedy like I was going up and presenting a bit. I did my comedy the way I do podcasts, where it's like a conversation that you have.
And that's why I think when it's done properly, like a conversation, you can find things. So you can get a bit out of it. That's what's great. It's almost like what we were talking about earlier about, taking chances, take chances in the middle, because it's more fun to get a little something than it is to just kill. And it's the same thing with podcasting. Like, if you find it in a conversation that you wouldn't normally have, you remind yourself of something. It just so happens that maybe a month or two later, when you're on the road and you are developing that into a bit, which has happened a few times with me, people are like, oh yeah, I heard that, the bird shit thing on Rogan.
Yeah.
Or they'll be like, I heard you run it on Rogan. And it's like, no, I wasn't run. You know what I mean? I wasn't running it.
That's the craziest is when, especially when you say something and on a podcast that is funny.
Exactly.
But then you're like, I'm not going anywhere with that. And then they're like everyone's always like, they're like, talk about your dad shitting his pants, or
right.
Talk about your dad being addicted to speed. And I'm like, that was not a bit, and I'm not exploring that because my dad will disown me. I said it on a podcast. I apologize. I said it on a podcast. But I think that's the most fascinating aspect of the whole
and
podcasting.
Sometimes that's when it turns into a bit, is when the audience member brings it up. There was one where it's like, do the joke. They thought it was a joke that I was doing on Rogan, but I had literally almost pooped my pants on the drive back from Sacramento to LA. That part where there's no exits?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had A&W. I was a vegan for 5 years, and I'm not going to do the whole story, but I was a vegan for 5 years. Saw A&W.
Do the shit your pants bit.
But, so people are like, talk about shitting your pants. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to really, to me, it's a tough premise, you know what I mean? Because like it's right there and then all of a sudden I started doing it, and now it's like it's got these layers, because it is, a writer sort of I am digging into a shit my pants bit.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it does have like shitty pants, these layers to it, in which, all of a sudden it's a smart shit your pants joke.
Yeah. Oh, I told a joke to Joe got to take a piss on a podcast.
Joe did?
Joe got to take a piss.
This is unheard of, by the way, an anomaly what you're talking about.
We did a 5-hour podcast. And so Joe in the middle, we were having so much fucking fun, and Joe in the middle had to go to the bathroom. He goes, and Red Band was there. And I feel so weird calling him Red Band, but Brian was there. I want to say Brian, but then everyone will be like, who's Brian?
Right.
And Brian and Jamie, and I told a story about what had happened that weekend in Cincinnati or Louisville. Mm-hmm. And I told it to Brian and Jamie as Joe took a piss. And then he came back and I finished it, and they were laughing, and Joe was like, what was that?
Yeah.
And in my head I was like, oh, that is going on stage.
Yeah.
But by the way, the only reason I told it was because Joe was leaving, and I knew Brian would think it was funny.
Right.
I was like, oh, this is a total Red Band move right here.
Bodily fluids.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you watch him on Kill Midnight last night? Not Kill Midnight.
Yeah, I watched it with him.
Midnight?
Went up to the store and
How was it?
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
He was so excited. I
Awesome.
could see by his tweets and posts that he was
totally. He's television's Brian Redband now. It's fun because it's, podcast. He's a straight up podcast guy. As straight up podcast as it gets.
He's the archetype.
Yeah.
For what 30% of the listeners want to be. Yeah. Like I get so many emails when I say I'm looking for help on this, or I'm looking for help in editing, and you get so many people going, "I'll be your Red Band. I'll be your Red Band." I'll be your young Jamie.
Yeah.
And you're like I think Tom Segura calls his blue band.
Yeah.
And then there was yellow band for a while.
Yeah.
The Asian guy.
It's all very, so like for him to get at midnight, that's really, really awesome.
It's great. It was great for any of us, but
Yeah.
it's great to see Brian cross over into mainstream.
Totally.
Because I think that, I think that was that one joke he told about Bob Hope, I think scared him off the business for a while.
Bob Hope.
Yeah, he told it at Rogan's. He told it on a Rogan show. It was right during the Iraq War, and I don't know. I'm not going to tell the joke
Oh,
again.
wow.
He might not want it shared.
Damn.
Yeah, but
I don't know about this.
yeah, I wish I could smoke with you. I got to go pick up my fucking kids.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I'm like, I would love.
You got to do that.
It's
after school.
You definitely can't. Yeah, what time is it?
I don't know.
Oh, we're fine. Fuck. Yeah, I'm supposed to leave here at 1:30, 1:45.
You have like a real amazing, you have like a real human life. I'm totally the opposite.
Segura and I have been talking about that a lot lately because, you do run into a lot of guys our age where they are not like I was eating lunch with my wife the other day, and I was thinking of one of our friends who will remain nameless, but I was like, I wonder what he's doing right now. I wonder if he's just alone. Like, 44, is he just having lunch by himself? And part of me was like, that must be really nice to be but I get that on the road, and I enjoy it on the road. And when I'm home, I am like, I want to go out. I wanted to go out and fucking do a set tonight. I wanted to work, and my wife's like, I've been on the road, I think 18 weeks straight. And she was like, this is your week home. She's like, what you should do is plan like a project tomorrow, like a regular dad would, and go to Home Depot. And I was like, fuck yeah, I've been wanting to seal my shower. I know who you are. I know you listen to this podcast. I appreciate the advice. I'm doing that tomorrow. I want to seal my shower.
So, do you smoke weed before doing things like that?
No. If I'm home with the girls, I'm pretty there. Meaning, even the whole week, I don't even really...
Weed really messes you up, huh?
It's a party for me. Once I smoke, it's a party.
Yeah.
I smoked the other morning before press. Yeah. I had a aggressive press, and I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
But then I got back to my room, and I couldn't go to sleep, and I couldn't work out, and I was hungry, and I'm like, fuck, that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
And if I was home... And I've done it before, like when we have a pool party at a friend's house or something, and there's a lot of parents, and I don't have any responsibilities. I might take a couple hits and have a few drinks, but for the most part, that was one of our friends, Tom and Sandy, lived here, and they both smoked pot. But for the most part, my gluttonous will be this cigar today, and then go get the girls, have a conference call at 2. Wait, when's my conference call? I have a conference call at 2. That's what I have. I have a conference call at 2. I got to pick the girls up. I got to leave her at 1:45, pick up the girls, have a conference call, and then I'll come home, and then it's pizza night. That's Friday night at our house.
That's so cool.
That's cool if you're not on a fucking diet and you have to make cauliflower pizza.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cauliflower's the crust?
It's really good. It's actually...
Oh, my goodness.
I hate to say this, but a lot of what I do with the Blue Aprons is I substitute their rice for shredded cauliflower.
Wow.
And it's still the healthiest fucking meals you'll ever have.
God.
Great sauces. I'm doing Blue Apron reads through this fucking podcast, but and then you can do cheat mode off theirs. I'll look at what they said, and then I'll go, I'm going to go do that on when this whole week I've been doing that.
I've been really bad. I just order delivery all the time, anytime I want to. I figure I'm just working so hard, and treat yourself, and I just get straight up delivery. I would love to. I used to cook for myself more, but now I'm just a little I'm like a grown boy. I smoke weed continuously. I made friends with Snoop Dogg recently.
Yeah.
Actual friends. And he sort of inspires me to just... He
smoke
treats
weed every day.
He treats marijuana like it's, like it's just a normal, casual thing.
I'll do that at night. Sometimes late at night, I will, if I've had, if we've been somewhere, we had some wine, I'll come home, smoke some weed, and try to shoot something in my man cave that I think's interesting. Or write down some ideas of things I want to shoot. There's a thing I want to shoot so bad. I'll show you real quick. But I got this. I came home and I had these little Kiva blueberry chocolates.
Yeah.
And one's like 5 milligrams, which isn't a lot. Mm-hmm. I'll split it in half. That's like 2 milligrams. That's nothing.
Yeah.
But it's that threshold marijuana, right, where you just feel inspired. Then you can have a cocktail and you feel a little buzz, but you're not high as fuck. You can really write. I feel like once I've heard about this, I'm thinking on Rogan about threshold treatments of hallucinogens, where people are taking the base milligram of a hallucinogen.
Microdosing.
That's it. Microdosing. So sometimes I'll take 5 milligrams or like 2.5 milligrams of an edible and just go, all right, I got 45 minutes to sit here and think of an idea. And then once I think of that idea, this is when it blossoms. By the way, I used to do this thing on my podcast of intros where I did sketches of different characters. Mm-hmm. That's microdosing. That was me going like, do Paul Revere meeting a guy promoting your Wilbur show. And so, but yeah, for the most part, I like
Did Speedo ever hit you back up?
No, but Australia, that's where Speedo's located.
Yeah.
When they reached out about the tour, they're like, giving you a heads up, Speedo's located here. We can make this happen.
Dude, that's the greatest stuff ever.
By the way, I think I was smoking weed that day. It was like one of those days where the kids are in the pool, the parents got it, you're not doing anything but hanging out and cooking dinner. And I have this great PAX pen, and I'll fill it up with whatever Joey recommends for me at our weed dispensary.
Yeah.
And I take like 2 hits, and you get creative. Yeah. I love the feeling. However, when your kids are around, you can totally smoke weed around your kids. There's no problem with it. It doesn't make you you're going to throw them out a window.
Right.
But for the most part, I like to be available for them. If they're like, let's go on a bike ride. Yeah. I'm like, let's go do a bike ride. Yeah. It's also dangerous. I read an article with Robert Downey Jr. where he was like, so funny, now that I'm off drugs, I don't need black tar heroin to watch Teletubbies. And I was like, oh.
He's so extreme. Black tar heroin.
But what does your day look like? Like what does your day look like today?
Well, it's always insanely busy for as mellow of a gig that I have, because I'm always developing and working on multiple shows or multiple crazy gigs at once. In which, it's like sort of like dream gigs. I get to take little writing jobs. I've been lucky enough to get, a cool team of agents and managers.
What was your first writing job?
First writing job was working with Jeff Ross on roasts. I was making fun of comedians. I was hosting the open mics at the Comedy Store. And I just got a reputation for being like, man, one more time for that guy, looks like a, whatever. And I was
just writing on roasts with Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Friars Club roast and the Comedy Central roast, and then we made a show called The Burn.
I remember that show.
October 2011. And that was fun. That was my first staff super writer's job.
How old were you?
I was 26, 25, 27, 26, 27. Yeah. And broke as fuck at the time, so the money was huge. And so that was my first one. And now I've gotten to the point to where after 6 Comedy Central roasts, and I've literally just gotten to take my pick at what I want to do. And if I wanted to write for a writing job right now, I could pretty much do it. But
you want to make your own thing,
right?
That's the fucking
multiples
key.
Of my own thing, and while building an infrastructure during it all, so that people, when it happens, it's there's a little bit of a,
Can I tell you what I do if I could do it all over?
Yeah.
And it's right up what you're just saying. My goal in this business is, and I'm kind of rolling the dice on this. I've been turning down some easy money projects that I don't find technically fulfilling. Like right now, I'm like, my stand-up is great, my podcast is great, 2 really good things I'm putting out there.
Yeah.
I go, let's just find out good stuff to put it out. But my goal is to have have an office where I got 3 young kids who are really hungry and know technology and are really passionate, and it's close. I can ride my bike or skateboard there, and to be able to walk in and say, here's what we're working on today.
Yeah.
And for you, I see that as like that. That would turn. If I could jump into your body for, that's weird, but if I could jump into your body for a year, I'd focus all my energy on that, because that would turn into a fucking conglomerate.
Yeah.
Like, because you're so ripe with ideas.
Yeah.
And thoughts that are a little bigger than what, like the one shot thing is just out of the scope of what guys were thinking about.
Yeah.
I want to show you the thing, but like,
I totally agree with you, by the way, and you just absolutely nailed. You just nailed exactly what my dream world is. Right now I'm doing it by myself. I'm overwhelmed.
We all are.
My manager's overwhelmed. I don't know. I feel bad for whoever else my manager reps.
What management? Where are you at?
Because if he's spending 50 minutes every other day at least on the phone with me about whatever the fuck we're talking, at least 45 fucking, like, we're just riffing and, like, I mean, literally, like, talking about productive work.
Yeah.
And fucking, you're so right, though. If I had 3, like we were talking about, yellow bands, you know what I mean? Hungry people.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what I'm doing.
I've told my business manager, I go, let's incorporate that into a budget.
I'll take
a gig.
If I had an investment into that, it would pay off so ridiculously.
It's what Joe is the one that set that. Joe and Adam Carolla kind of set up that paradigm of, like, let's lock it down.
Yeah.
Let's put down roots and do what we want to do. I mean, the Fight Companion, that's not an idea that anyone would ever greenlight. Like,
right.
Joe just had to do it.
Yeah. And that's just, Carolla and Rogan did that, and that's just with podcasting. You know what I mean? Like, it
Carolla's doing it. Carolla's doing it with movies, with TV shows, and that's the goal. But the problem is, you got to make a couple million a year in order to deficit fund that.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to people to get money. Like,
I guess.
You have to. I'm telling you. Well, and not if single. All you got to make's $1 million. But with kids, you got to make $2 million.
Yeah. It's incredible, though. So my day ends up being, I pretty much wake up slightly hungover from whatever. Maybe it was just, I don't drink that much, but I do drink often, like at night. So it's usually just like 2, 3, 4 maybe drinks, and that fucks me up. I'm, 150 pounds of just pure bones. I'm just made of bones.
I fuck chicks your size.
You probably fuck the shit out of them, too.
Oh, she's over there. You better walk it in. She's 131, everybody. She would lose her shit. I told everyone she was
So I wake up slightly hungover, and I try to go for a short run before having my first coffee and cigarettes of the day and getting it all going and laying out the plan. Or normally it's already laid out now. So it's always a mishmash of just, I have, pals that I'm working on different things with come over in different time slots, unless I'm doing one of the 3 podcasts that I do, which Kill Tony's at night, Mondays at 8. Then there's the Pony Hour, which I just tape and stockpile and release whenever somebody's available, really, is what I wire around. Yeah, you're totally coming up next, but you're on Kill Tony on Monday. And the pro wrestling podcast that I do with my buddies called The Store Horseman, which is probably the funniest podcast that I do.
That I've not heard, and I feel like I know everything about podcasts.
Yeah, we just are starting to
That's
pop
right. You
now.
You wrote for WWE, right?
Actually, no. They offered me a job, and I didn't do it. I didn't take it.
You and Sam Roberts and Colt Cabana and like a few of you guys got me back interested in pro wrestling. My buddy Cowhead, obviously, got me back interested in pro wrestling. And I was like, I ended up, now I know what the pipe bomb thing is.
Yeah.
And
if you watched it with us, if you came over and watched one pay-per-view with the group of comedians that I hang out with, you would die of laughter. We literally, it's just there's nothing like, you've heard of comedians in cars drinking coffee?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you what the most extreme, hilarious version of that is. Comedians in living rooms watching pro wrestling. Like, it's ridiculous. the riffs and if it's somebody's first time seeing somebody, it's always like their initial thing. For us, the people that know the characters, it's always doubly hilarious to see that person's take on that.
I would love to, because I don't know anything about pro wrestling.
I've been trying to talk Joe Rogan. This is one where I felt bad for. It was last night. I riffed. I was hanging out with Joe, and I literally go, "Hey man, we got to do a pro wrestling companion." He goes, "I don't have time for that shit." Like that. I'm like, "Of course you don't. What am I thinking?"
I wish I had that. The traits I wish I. Let's do this. We'll name a comic, and then name their admirable trait that they have that you wish you had more of. I just did this on my walk with my wife.
Oh, this is.
I only did it to like, so Bill Burr.
I wish I had more of his.
Money?
yeah, that one sounds great. I mean, respect.
Oh, mine for Bill. Yeah, that would be a great one. That was a good one. Mine for Bill is I wish I had his obsessiveness about the bit.
It's unbelievable.
He has an idea, and then you can watch him. If you spend enough time with him, you can watch him chew it in conversations with you. You can watch him think it, and it's really admirable. I've seen him do it a handful of times where you go, you're just talking, but you're so funny naturally. You've been thinking about this all fucking day, haven't you? And he's like, all month.
Yep.
And then Attell has that same thing. I wish I had both that about them.
You want to hear an interesting little short story about me and Bill Burr from when I was just a door guy?
Fuck yeah.
So my whole mentality when I started at the store,
by the way,
was fly. Yeah,
I got to tell you this: the only other person that started one of these stories on this podcast ever, and I'll lead the show with this, is Chris Fair. I'll edit this part out, but Chris Fairbanks. Yesterday, said, "You want to hear an interesting story?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "The day Mitch almost lost his leg," and I went, "Hold on one second. Slow this down. Tell me this whole story." And he was like, "Oh, amazing fucking story." He tells, I'm not going to spoil it, but he was the one that had to go to the hospital. And I was like, shut the fuck up. It was one of the most amazing stories I've ever fucking heard. That's next week on Bertcast. What was it? What was the story about Bill Burr?
This isn't going to be that great of a story.
Here, start it over so I can edit. You want to hear a good story about Bill Burr? and then I'll edit that out.
It's when we're talking about Bill, it's like, what was it? I must have been like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years in as a door guy. And my whole thing when I was coming up at the store was like, I was always super confident. People do like comedians do funny impressions of me, like I'm number one and all this stuff. But like, I never say that, you know what I mean? But I've always had that sort of, swagger. Yeah. So my point is like, I always came across as confident, but I was always fly on the wall. I was the most quiet, smiley door guy with planning my takeover or whatever. Is the perception. Yeah. So I was always very quiet, very mellow, very respectful of the comedians. Not over the top, but just right.
That was kind of a door guy I was.
Yeah.
When I worked the door at the Boston Comedy Club, always.
How long did you work the door?
6 months.
Wow.
6 months, and then I got a 6-figure deal.
Oh, hello.
And then I was like, I'm moving to LA. Everybody, suck my dick, bitches.
Fuck yeah.
Have fun standing on my jizz, suckers. I fucking flew out to LA, and then I got another deal, and then I got a TV show.
Holy shit.
Yeah. But you said.
So, super fly on the wall. Bill Burr, obviously, one of the best.
Everyone's favorite.
Right. But I was always very mellow, you know what I mean? And I never wanted to, when you make a real first impression, like, hey, just wanted to let you know. And it was one of those where I go up to him after watching this set that he did about a bunch of stuff that had just sort of just happened, right? And it's already just 6 minutes of dang, dang, bong, 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 just so the fucking audience is roaring a sound like we hadn't heard in a while there. Anyway, I finally decide I'm going to go up and say something to him about it. And I went up to him, all these years of silent approach, you know what I mean? And I literally go, Bill, just wanted to let you know, man, it's amazing how you can so easily take something that just happened and make it so hilarious. And what he said next changed my life forever. He goes, you think that was easy? And all of a sudden I'm a dickhead, right? He goes, you think that's easy? You know, you think I just magically hear something in the news and I just walk up and it's so easily I make it a thing? Yeah. No, man, that's work. I'm sitting there working. When you're hanging out, whatever, I'm writing that. I'm working on it. It's not easy. For me, it's not easy. Yeah. It's work. And it was like, oh my God. That's when I realized the funniest people have to write. You have to fucking dig in, and you have to double dig in. And I ended up feeling like a dick after that. And I think in a cool way, he totally knew what he was doing, and he knew that I was a door guy, and he knew that I'd been there a few years, and I think he knew that he was teaching me a lesson that I was either going to take or leave. But I took the hell out of that.
Hell yeah.
And
that's a great life lesson.
It's a great life lesson, because if Bill Burr has to sit there, as funny as he is, breaking it down, looking at it, moving it, adjusting it, fucking hours and hours and hours, and that was, you know, what was sort of in a few seconds driven into my head by him was like, you know, all of a sudden it started to make sense to me. The little bit that I know about Chappelle. Wakes up super late. Does he wake up super late, or is he laying in bed thinking about fucking shit and moving it around?
Yeah.
Little things like that. Like, it's like, of course he is. You don't just say it.
This is my impression of you saying that to me if I was in Bill Burr's shoes. Yeah, man, some people are just talented. Yeah, I obsess about a story. Like, I woke up at 4 a.m. yesterday because I had this fight with this guy in my dream, and I had a really good comeback. And in the comeback, I went, oh, that's a good fucking line in the dream. And so I got up and I went, that's going to fit well into this story. And I got up and I wrote it down. And then I was like, what, am I going to sleep for like another hour and 45 minutes? I was like, I'm going to just stay up, have a cup of coffee, and I'll write. And I just ended up fucking beating it out, walking around my house by myself, just walking in circles and working out the story. And then I was like, oh, cool. All right. And I was like, I don't think I do this enough. Like, I don't wake up passionate about making my career better. Yeah. Meaning with the material, I let the inspiration come and then try to bring it on stage. Write down a bit and then bring it on stage. And then I go on stage, I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. But I also do, fucking 5 shows a weekend. Yeah. So it's not like I'm just in the store doing one show a night. I'm at fucking Omaha.
It becomes a blur sometimes. You know what I do to counteract that lately? A new thing that I've sort of taught myself?
What?
Looking at them straight in their fucking eyes, deeper and longer than normal.
Oh, yeah?
If this makes sense. Like, I've been doing shows every weekend and this and that, and all of a sudden you get to where you're performing for yourself almost to the walls. You hear them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've just been looking at the audience deeper in the eyes lately. It makes it so much more fun. You see their
Except for
real...
the person you're staring at.
Well, no, each of them, though. You're spreading the stare, but it's when you're looking.
I pick one person, usually a black woman, and I stare her down.
No, it's not one person. I'm saying that when you're looking out there, instead of sometimes I would look higher up.
Oh,
I'm starting.
I do that.
Yeah,
I either talk to who I connect with people sometimes, but then sometimes, like when I tell the machine story, I disconnect entirely, and I fucking just look at the candles. That's and I watch the candles, and I go, telling this to the lighthouses in the fog, the many lighthouses that wave back and forth.
Why is that? Why do you? Don't you get like a jolt from seeing like somebody looking right at you, going like, ha ha?
Oh, I do on like a new material, but when I tell the machine story, sometimes I'm like.
You know what I would be doing if I had the machine story is I would find the person.
I've done everything.
I would find the person who seems like they were enjoying themselves the least. The one person who's sort of just like the boy. You can tell that like maybe her boyfriend is like your biggest fan.
Yeah.
And he probably plays your podcast out loud on a boombox, all the time. And she's just sort of over it. That one, because they stand out in a room of 300, 400.
I look for the guy. I look for the person that is not my demographic, like usually an older black man. And I go, have you ever heard about the story of the time I got involved with the Russian Mafia? And he's like, no. I go, you're going to like this story. And I go, you ready? And he's like, yeah. And I go, hey, if you have any questions, jump in.
Yeah.
It's one thing I love the attachment I have to making sure a story's true and it's not a lie. I mean, I'll stretch the truth to get a laugh, but integrally it has to be, it's also the hindrance I have is I wish I could just make up a fucking story.
Right.
But I love when people ask me questions about it because I can find bits.
Yeah.
I go, and they're like, wait, hold on. How did you get, what was a train like ride like home? I was like, great fucking question.
Yeah. And what's crazy is that it can completely it can be something right there that you totally didn't even notice. But meanwhile, and I totally think that's part of like old school Howard Stern's genius was having Robin in the glass booth. You know, that was literally to like make her feel more like an audience member, more like a listener. She was supposed to be the one that was speaking for us.
I would love to have a glass booth here. Maybe I'll do podcasts where I run a line out here and I shut the door and I have like a couple comics who get to ask questions. Like in the middle,
I
want to do one of the podcasts I want to do coming up is I want to do one with some door guys from the store. I spoke to my fucking mind's running blank right now.
Feng Chao?
No, he just called me the other day in the middle to give me my avails.
Josh Martin.
No, it wasn't. It was Josh, I think, but no, it wasn't Josh, but. Same vibe. But yeah, I want to do some with the door guys. Yeah. I'd like to bring the door guys in when I do podcasts. Like, it would be cool to bring them in and go, hey, we're doing a 3-person. I'm doing a podcast with one guy. Yeah. Why don't you come in and hang out and just be on the podcast and promote shit?
Yeah.
It would be cool because I remember being that guy in New York, and when you got invited to go hang out at the diner, and they're like, don't say anything, but just fucking hang.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And then you did say something funny, and you get a laugh, and they're like, you should use that on stage. You're like, thank you so much. Thank you, Patrice.
The greatest, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever get to meet Patrice?
I did. I worked, well, I didn't really work with him, but I got to work next to him on the roast of Charlie Sheen.
Do you hang out with Metzger at all?
Yeah.
Metzger's the fucking best.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
Yeah, he's great.
He's that fucking rape thing.
Man, I did. He didn't,
by the way, if you don't know, he didn't rape anybody. He defended a guy accused of rape. He said you can't accuse people. I did a podcast about it if you want to hear the whole thing. And then apparently the guy did rape people, and Kurt was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Why did you have to be a rapist?
Yeah.
I was doing the right thing.
It's an interesting...
I'm Robin Hood for free speech.
He's a beast, though, man. I did
the best.
Vancouver with him and Big J. And
yeah, what was that? Wait, hold on. I'm thinking of the show that Russell Peters, Rogan, and Big J did.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's fucking... I was like the one date where you're like, how do I get on that?
I know what you're talking about. That was Toronto. JFL. Wow.
We should still be doing, I think, what Brian had, that original idea of those Death Squad tours. I think we should be doing clumps of those every now and then in theaters.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's a no-brainer.
It really is. Well, it's a brainer because we're all in different agencies, and all agencies want that one nut.
Yeah.
They don't want to split up their clients for the weekend because it's not, we can all make more money by ourselves alone.
Maybe. I don't know.
Definitely.
The way that I picture it.
Definitely. How many more tickets do you think we could add to Tom Segura's weekend? Not many. Anyone who bought a ticket to him is already going like, oh, I'd see Bert too. Thanks.
I don't know, man. I think we could do goddamn... I think with a couple months of preparation, with a couple months of promotion, I think we could be doing amphitheaters.
My goal was
Let me say
Australia.
That one more time. Amphitheaters.
I don't know about amphitheaters.
Well, I mean, I do. I think I know about amphitheaters. I did them with Oddball, and I think Rogan, with his draw...
First of all, you did them with Oddball, and they were all failures.
Not really.
They canceled 12 of them.
Those were
and
failures.
I was on every single one of those with Tom Segura.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And Eliza Schlesinger, and Fluffy, and fucking Jim Jeffries, and Sebastian, and not one of them sold a ticket. And they canceled all of them. Now, I'm not saying Oddball was a failure. I'm sure there were some successes, but I guarantee you anyone who was producing Oddball was like, yeah, we didn't have Chappelle to sell out an amphitheater. And by the way, Chappelle knows that. That's why he's like, yeah, I'm not doing an amphitheater with 9 other guys because I'll just do the amphitheater by myself. That's the problem, is like, we could never, like, me, Ari, and Joey, or me, Ari, and Tom were going to do a show one time. Everyone who was going to buy a ticket would have bought a ticket for me by myself, Ari by myself,
right,
and Tom by yourself.
Yeah.
So that, like, we're not branching off enough.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I want to do it is to hang out with other really talented comics who get to look at my set and go, hey, for real, you're being super fucking lazy on this bit. Hey, for real, bit's a tad bit below you, and I saw someone else do it. That's what I want, because you don't get enough of that.
Right.
And you get it at the store. Yeah. What I want is what happened with that Helen Keller Anne Frank bit was I did it. I just said it. I didn't mean it. I just said
What
it.
happened with it?
I was doing Jeremiah's new stand-up show.
Oh, yeah.
And
Isn't that a great show?
And someone said, tell the. I said, anyone else want to say anything? And someone goes, tell a story about Helen Keller. And I went, oh, I used to think Helen Keller and Anne Frank were the same person. And it fucking killed.
Yeah.
And I told the story of what happened and how I found out. And I got off, and Rogan was like, that better be a bit. I go, no, I just said it. And he goes, that's a bit. That is a fucking bit.
Isn't that amazing? How a baby can be born. That's going to make so many people happy.
And you're like, and then I was like, note to self, I recorded it on my phone, thank God.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I couldn't say it the same way I said it that night. I guess I said it so flippantly that everyone laughed, and then I was forcing it. So
you can almost just go straight in. Just literally, hard segue. I used to think Anne Frank and Helen Keller were the same person. That's so funny, even as just a turn, as a start.
I did. I've been doing that lately, and then it was part of the flying dildos joke, and it became, because that was the same day that I happened to flying dildos as we saw the Anne Frank house, and I thought it was Helen Keller's house.
I don't know the flying dildos thing, but can I tell you something? As a title of a story, 10 stars.
It's a good title. And then people just yell, flying dildos. And you're like, okay. It sucks when people are like, cucumber carrot. And I'm like, that's the punchline, asshole.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. That was an old bit. That was one of my first really solid bits where I was like, I'm now a murderer. Like where I was like, I just wrote a great fucking joke. The joke was, just to justify it, this was my first, bit where I was so proud of my writing.
Yeah.
And this has happened on my first special. Is my wife, it was a true story. My wife was at a grocery store, and she was in the produce section, and I just yelled out really loud, "Hey, this time get a thin cucumber." And this lady was like, "That's inappropriate, sir." And I was like, "Get your mind out of your gutter. I'm putting in her ass, not in mine." And then I was like, and then by the way, guys, if you're ever going to do that, don't use a cucumber, use a carrot. Cucumber's too aggressive. It's like a home invasion. A carrot's like, shh, is anybody home? And so that was the first bit that I wrote that I was like, oh, it's a weird thing. There's this thing I was just watching. It's called the yips. Do you know what the yips are? The yips are, in baseball, it's when you can't throw the ball straight. So a player will get the yips, and they'll field a ground ball, but they can't throw it to the first baseman. They throw it way off to the right. Or pitchers get it, and when they throw a pitch, they no longer can hit the strike zone at all. Do you remember the guy Wild Thing from that movie, Charlie Sheen?
Yeah.
It's the yips. It's a head case thing. Can't define it. A guy who could normally he can throw a baseball like this, but in the game when he fields it, he can't do it. And I was like, and the version we get as comics as the yips is not being able to write new material.
Yeah.
That's the yips. No one gets it on stage. You don't get it on stage because you already have the bits. You just got to say them.
Yeah.
But the yips for us is when you do an hour and you can't write anymore.
Right.
And you're like, I got the yips. I can't think of bits. And it's just a head thing. You're like, of course
it's totally a head thing.
You just got to be willing to fail.
When people, a lot of writer questions I get from comedians. How do you write this and that? What do you do when you get writer's block? And it's like, that's one of those things to where once you start to believe that writer's block is a thing.
Writer's block. Writer's block is the yips. No shit, Bert. I'm a fucking idiot.
But I'm saying, once you think that's a thing, then you're blocked. You're doing that. It's all in the head. I learned that immediately. That's another cool little... we also have marijuana. Comedy lesson story was like, I remember I was this was in between writing for, we wrote a pilot for the show, me and Jeff, and Jeff Ross, and we were touring across the country. So this was me literally making money for the very first time because it was before the show went. So I was making, a few $100 or whatever, opening up for him. And it was an amazing time, and we were roasting each city for his special. Like, I was helping him, all right, so today we're going to Toronto, stuff for him to say at the, we were roasting each city at the top of the show.
The only joke I have for that is it's an R from being red face. That's a really you'd have to really have been on the website I was on last night to get that joke. Tonto was red face, and the red face. So never mind. It's a fucking pointless joke.
So anyway, we got to one city. It was like Calgary or something like that, and I was hungover from the night before. We would do a theater, and then go to another city the next night. And he's like, all right, here we are. We were getting lunch or something. He goes, all right, what do you got for Calgary? Here we are. And I go, I got nothing yet. Calgary, I mean, I don't even know anything about the place. I'm sort of like blocked up. I don't know. What do you think? He goes, and the way he just sort of was like, What'd you say? I got sort of just like, I don't know. I'm sort of just like blank up there. He goes, what does that mean? Like the way he was sort of like, he was really, and the cool thing about Jeff and his like mentorship, because he's a wise, unbelievably cool, he's got a youthful spirit, but a wise mind, because he has, a ton of amazing older mentors. Like he was raised like a fucking Jedi.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he just sort of, it wasn't what he was saying, it was the way he was saying it, where he's like, what does that even mean? Like, he really got into it.
Genuinely.
Like, what do you...
In a Rogan-esque way, like, huh?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you can't... And he's so curious as to... And you're like, oh, shit. So Calgary Flames, and you're just in it, and you realize like there is no writer's block, and that's another one. Up there with the fucking Bill thing is like that Jeff Ross thing, which who cares about the inspirational moments of my life? But that's something that I think about. Both of those things almost every day for a half a second, where it's like, man, I can't come up with anything. What the fuck you mean you can't come up with that? And then immediately it's like, wow, you know what I mean? Because and everything's a fucking head game. And once you look at that and realize, oh, writer's block is just a head game, and then you realize a ton of shit is just a head game. The phone thing really is a crazy thing, though. What? Yesterday it got me good. I mean, just like how it can take you. It just gets you. It's a different type of beast. It's an interesting new way to psych yourself out and distract yourself and just be never ending.
Speaking of which, I've got a roll. We've done 2 hours. That's fucking awesome,
really?
Man. That was
Felt
fucking
like 45
seamless.
minutes to
it was
me.
fucking seamless. That was fucking phenomenal, Tony, man. I appreciate it.
Of course.
So you can get your podcast, The Pony Hour.
The Pony Hour.
Kill Tony.
Kill Tony. The Store Horseman, if you've ever enjoyed pro wrestling for a second. My Netflix special one shot is still up there. You're going to probably have to search it. Nowhere near the front anymore. And
this releases next week, so what tour dates you got?
If you're a fan of roasting, go to YouTube and look up Tony Hinchcliffe roast Snoop Dogg.
I've seen it. It's fucking great.
It's 10 minutes that you'll really enjoy. I'm really proud of that. That's
really great.
That's something. Me being the only white roaster in an all-black theater to roast
really
Snoop
fucking
Dogg.
Great.
And a lot of other fun stuff. All the tour dates are TonyHinchcliffe.com, Niagara Falls, and a bunch of fun clubs. Coming up.
Fuck yeah, man! I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you so much, Bert.
Once again, I'll say thank you for that drink after that set. It meant a lot to me.
Wow, I can't believe you remember it and that it stood out to you. But it's my pleasure. I love it.
Awesome, man.
This episode was brought to you by The Machine.